best way to build and run a website. So I was inspired to do this last week, working with one of my employers, clients, whatever you want to call it. And I just, and this isn't a new thing, a new occurrence. I've worked with in this industry for over 20 years, and in coding and programming is like a religion. You get so, hold on one second. I just want to put this thing over here because I need to see if I'm getting any warnings that people are trying to join. Let me put this screen over there too. All right, so yeah, as some of you know, like if you've been around long enough, there are people that reside in certain camps where they believe that things can only be done one way, or they're not in the mindset that technology changes, things get easier, and there are all different ways to skin a cat, so to speak. And we're talking about building a website here. When I first started, I was in PHP and simple HTML, but of course that progressed over time. PHP is still a very valid thing, but you get some people that get stuck in their ways and say, "Hey, I'm only going to build this technology with .NET or Python or whatever." So about that, let me talk about the table of contents here. Got about Joshua, visiting websites, common techniques, deploying a website, and conclusions and questions. So about me, I'm a software developer, as most of you know. When I'm not working and enjoying and spending time with my family, I enjoy farming and creating things out of spare parts. My early career was based in advertising and marketing, as well as working as a commercial photographer. Only time will tell what enters me in the next 5 to 10 years. I hope to live long enough to see mankind vacation on planets like Mercury and Mars. And I only say that just because if you follow like what they're doing in NASA, they have like probes out there that are like scouring Mars and finding that water actually does exist. And Elon Musk and everybody else is out there launching rockets all the time. So I truly, that's not just like me just being facetious. I truly do wish that I can live long enough to see someone at least terraform Mars, or actually just walk out there and you know make it as something that you can actually vacation to. So that's a little bit about me. I do have a personal site. If you ever wanted to go to joshuamackey.com, I advertise myself as an applications and solutions provider. And that's just so I don't categorize myself as a front end developer or a back end developer or someone that just builds websites, right? So that's a little bit about me. But back on this presentation. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of building or visiting a website. So when you visit a website, people think that the internet is like a new thing, like the 90s. Like I can remember it in high school when I took this technology class, and it was like I think Windows 94, which people don't believe me when I tell them Windows 94 was out, but because Windows 95 was like the first official launch, you had to go to like a web address if you had AOL or whatever, and you type it in and it would render a site. Um, well, the internet's been around since like the 70s, but only like nerds and people that would be on green screens could actually transmit data back and forth. So in this, I'm talking about like the process of resolving an actual IP address, which is where domains live. So I got a little description here that says, a domain name, a DNS, a resolution is when you type a website's domain name, for instance, www.example.com into your browser. And the first thing that it needs to do is translate that into something that the computer can bring back, which is an IP address. And that will actually resolve and bring you to where the website is parked. And basically what that looks like is this. You type in your domain and it's going to reach out to this IP address. You can actually type in this IP address and get to your website if you know your website's IP address. But this is the process of visiting a website. It's just like when people say, "Hey, what do I need to do to get my website out?" They think they just need to go to GoDaddy and buy a domain. But the domain is literally just a license plate for the garage where your website lives. And they talk to one another. It's just like if you get pulled over by the police and you don't have your license plate, it's the same difference. This will be flagged by modern day search engines. It's just not a good way to search the web. Nobody can remember an IP address very easily, but they can sure enough remember your domain name. So that's the process of visiting a website and what it's like. And I can get into so many other nerdy things about like load balancing and scaling and clusters and nodes, like because in certain applications, you'll have several different IP addresses that will be pertaining to one specific website. But that's for another discussion. That's more on the DevOps tip that we're talking about here. So moving on, talk about I'm flipping through different screens. The common web solution techniques. So when you think about a website, a lot of people think, yeah, WordPress, or, I've got a hand coded site or a Shopify site. These are all like buzzwords. So I wrote a few down here, like CMS. CMS just stands for content management systems. Basically what they are is they allow a user. I always break it down to whenever I build things for users or sell or consult with people, I say, if you want to be able to manage your own website, your own content, that's what a content management system is. And I tell them, you don't need to know how to code. You just have to have a basic knowledge of something like a Microsoft Office. If you know how to work your way around Microsoft Office or Word or an Excel spreadsheet, then you could maintain a content management system. And all that's doing is just allowing you to enter data, change out pictures, text, videos, whatever your website may have. That's one of the ways of building a website, and they're super easy to create. You can literally go out to WordPress.com or Shopify, some of these other Squarespace, and there would be an automated system that could spin that up for you, create your domain, and type in that IP address that I was talking about earlier, and then you'd be on your way. So that's one way. Another way is hand coding a site, which is what most coding camps talk about. Or if you were to go to W3 schools and learn how to code, you could literally write an HTML site. I thought about doing some live coding on this talk, but that could get into the weeds because it's supposed to be just a general discussion about web technologies and how to launch the best website. And when I say like what's the best way, it's really just a discussion that's taking place here. That's just saying, okay, what are the ideas here, and we could talk about what is the best way at the end. Another option is AI generated sites. I just sent a friend a site a little bit ago. It was about untrackable phones. One of the owners or the founders of Blackwater, the mercenary group, they were talking about like how the government spies on you. So your cell phone is always listening to you. Like if you say something like you may be talking about like ice cream, and then you start seeing ads about ice cream. That's what it's not necessarily AI that does that, but that particular site that I sent him about these unblocked phones, it looked like it was AI generated, and that was his comment. And it truly did. But so to make that, so to talk a little bit about that, you literally don't have to code. You can literally go to certain sites and you type in what you want, the name of your site, what services you offer, and it'll literally generate all the pages that you need and deploy it for you. And there's a whole slew of services that you can find out there on the web that can do that for you. Another technique will be WordPress, like I said, or Drupal or Joomla, Shopify, Webflow. These are all techniques. There are too many to list to go down the list, but I do have a list at the end that lists quite a few other solutions that you could do to build this perfect website or whatever you have in mind. Moving on, deploying a website. So a lot of people don't think about deploying. So what deploying is it just means that, okay, after I edit my website, how do I get it to the public? How do I make a change? Like I just launched Event Robin, which is the platform that I use to advertise this web meetup group. There are lots of bugs and things that people are going to point out to me, on this site. But when I want to make a change to this thing, it needs to get published and go through the cycles. So that's what a deployment does. So basically, what that looks like, here's like a simple diagram of what a deployment does. When you visit a website, you're on the browser is called the client. The client just means like it could be any device. It could be a mobile device. It could be your phone. It could be like a kiosk at McDonald's. When you go to Panera Bread or McDonald's, you see those kiosks, those are considered clients. And what that means is that client is going to go out and reach and make the call to a web server. like this right here, where your site lives on that IP address, and it's going to pull back data so that the user can see it back on the client. And I'm choosing editing tools here that I don't want to do here in Acrobat. Moving on. Okay, so the client goes and talks to the server or the file system and brings back data so that you can see on your device, whether that's a laptop or a desktop. Sorry, just making sure that I'm not getting an alert here. And after you get that information, it loads it there. And then if you want to make requests to that website, then it'll send responses to and from to get that back and forth. But the deployment, once you deploy it, it's a user on the client may see old stale data, and they won't get a fresh copy of your site until that deployment is made. And they may have to do a refresh. That's why you see like updates. They may say, hey, we're doing maintenance. You may see certain messages that flow across the screen of certain sites that you visit. From your bank to social media or whatever. Those are deployments that are being taken place, fixes that are going, and it's a constant process. But if you use something like a content management system, like a WordPress or Drupal or Shopify, as soon as you hit update, it does the deployment instantly. And it's actually not a deployment. What that is really, when you edit a piece of content, it takes that piece of content and updates the database instantly. So it's not necessarily a deployment, it's just one record in the database being updated, but you're still most likely you're going to need a page refresh to see that update. So these are the types of things that go on with like deployments and updating content. And like I said, this is an extremely basic example of web architecture where we have a file system here, a database, a web server, and a client, which could be a phone, a tablet, a desktop computer, or whatever. So that's that. The next thing I want to talk about is some of the tools that you can use to create a website. So I have a few pages pulled up here that I saved. We saw WordPress. We know that WordPress is like, I think 70% of the websites in the world, according to their statistics, run on WordPress. I'm not going to bash WordPress and I'm not going to talk good about it, but it is a solution. It's a popular solution. It's proven, it's tried, and lots of sites run successfully on it. So if you're in this camp and you prefer it, it's one way to do it. Laravel is another option. It's more like a framework. So you'll need some coding experience to actually get it up and running. But it is very powerful. You can build web APIs, web services, and do all kinds of other cool things. Vue.js is another framework, more for coders, people that like to tinker. I just brought this up just so you can see some of the companies that use it. You may not know any of these companies here, but I like it. I personally like when companies or open source technologies will show how many people actually use it and who's on using the technology, because it'll give you some validation that, hey, if I decide to use this tool, I could have success just like this group over here. So let's see. We've got Vite, which is basically just a set of tooling, and you could use like this tool called Vite to do to automate the process of spinning up like your code project. So like I said before, like when we talked about like some of the ways to get a code base or a website going, right? AI generated sites. AI and automation are similar, but not the same. AI is, in my opinion, I'm just speaking here freely. AI is more so, I'm gonna use my algorithms to create a solution out of thin air or from predictable like schematics that exist. Like, so some of the AI programs that are out there now will literally scour the web and come up with something that they can, a solution that they deliver back to you, versus automation is just a set of existing scripts that will pull and get you a solution that way. So like if I say I have a rules engine that says, hey, A, B, and C can come down from this list and get delivered to the user. It's just a static set of scripts. And sorry if I'm speaking way too technical here, but that's basically my example of AI versus automation. And you can combine both AI and automation together. Okay, we don't want to see my terminal here, but moving on. Did I finish all of these? That's Gemini. This is actually one of Goop Chat GPT's competitors. You could build a website this way, but I wouldn't advise it. But this is an AI chatbot. I just basically told it to tell me about colors that look similar to the color teal, and it just generated this. Now, this is an example of AI generated content. So you could also tell it to do things like create and let's see, create an HTML page for, let's see here, planting seeds. Now, this isn't coming from a set of scripts like I talked about, but this is just, it's literally scouring the internet and giving me something back. So it came up with its own title, Let's Plant Some Seeds. It's got some CSS styles here. Then we go on to the body, where it talks about growing your seeds, got some content talking about floating seed or planting seeds is a rewarding way to bring life to your garden, blah, blah, blah. You could literally take all of the pages that are generated here and create your own website this way. But it's a little tedious, and you might want to, if you wanted to take that approach, I probably would recommend going to a paid solution, something like Webflow or some of the other guys out there. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just, let's go back. Some of the other products that are out there. I just made a long list of technologies. I don't know what everyone's profession is on this call, but as far as what they can and can't do, but there are some people that stick to what they stick to, and they may recognize some of the things on this list for building websites. So in my conclusion, what is the best approach to build a website? It's really just it's based on whatever you prefer, what you want to tolerate. That's the answer. That's my answer to that. Now, if you ask, advertising agencies or, school programmers or someone that's been in the business for a long time, they may have a different answer. I remember I was minding my own business at a Ruby Tuesdays one time, and me and this guy were just having lunch out of the office, and we were talking about some stuff that we wanted to build. And this guy reached over. He was like, "Hey, man, you guys are wasting your time because the only thing you need to worry about is Ruby on Rails." And he wouldn't leave us alone. He was eating a T-bone steak, and he kept saying, "I'm telling you, man, Rails is gonna win. It's gonna win the race for technology." So you get people like that, man, that just love what they love. And you see, I have Rails highlighted here, and Rails is okay. But I personally feel that there is no such thing as a bad programming language. And that's all I have. Yeah, that's it for my presentation. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know.